In the great war between Betamax and VHS, the Anderson family was Team Betamax. Their Betamax collection had a box set of Hitchcock films, which included classics such as Rope, The Man Who Knew Too Much, Rear Window, and The Trouble with Harry. As much as young Wes liked those movies, what really made an impact on him was how the biggest name on the cover wasn't the actors, but rather it was the name of the director, Alfred Hitchcock. That's right. The star of the movies was, in fact, the man behind the camera. That changed his thoughts about movies. Of Swedish and Norwegian ancestry, Wesley Wells Anderson was born on May 1st, 1969. He grew up in Houston, Texas, described by him as hot, humid, and full of mosquitoes. His mother, fittingly named Texas Ann Burroughs, an archaeologist, at times took her children to her archaeological digs. She also worked as a real estate agent. His father, Melver Leonard Anderson, ran an advertising and public relations firm. Unfortunately, Mom and Dad's rocky relationship ended in divorce when Wes, the middle child of a group of 3 boys, was 8 years old. Very apparent in his movies, Wes has also stated in interviews how the trauma of the divorce had a deep impact and was a crucial turning point in childhood for he and his brothers. Following the divorce, his behavior in school turned for the worse. Luckily, his 4th grade teacher discovered a good method to get him to behave in class. Allow him to produce his own plays. Just before the divorce, recognizing the positive effect movies had on Wes, his father gifted him a Yashica Super 8 video camera for his 8th birthday. This ignited his desire to begin writing, directing, and shooting his own Super 8 films. One reel short's about 3 minutes long, starring his older brother Mel, with younger brother Eric playing the antagonist, who frequently died in the films. The sacrifice little brothers make. Well, his first film was based on a library book called The Skateboard 4. The story revolved around 4 adolescent males in a skateboard club. The leader of the club feels insecure and threatened when a new guy wants to join the group. This exploration into the theme of male bonding, camaraderie, and the complexities surrounding human relationships would be the first in a long line of cinematic experiments. Now here's an epic experiment. While still a child, with help from his brother, Wes cut a hole in the roof of their home to see what it was like to enter the house from a different angle. Some people do truly see the world different. Now, this early interest to see something familiar from a different viewpoint would prove to serve him well as a filmmaker. However, can't say how excited his parents must have been about this experiment. One can only guess. That day must have been an intense moment in the Anderson household. Now, another element that would later play a major role in his works was his fascination with architecture, in particular, interiors. As a child, he filled sketchbooks with drawings of fancy houses, later stating, "There was this certain phase I went through where I was obsessed with being rich. So I was fairly interested in Rolls Royces and mansions." And to encourage Wes, his father bought him a drafting table, which he would soon be glued to, saying, "I always worked at a kind of, tilted table like that. I think, after that, I wanted to be a writer, and in a way, I guess, part of what I do with these movies is a bit of a combination of those things." Then, at 12 years old, he began to push the boundaries further when he announced that he felt everyone in the family would be better off if he moved to France alone and finished his studies there. And to illustrate his case, he used detailed handouts as well as pointed out his own made-up data that France offered better science programs. This devotion to convince his parents by constructing an alternative reality and clearly quantify his imagined world as his 12-year-old mind saw it draws obvious parallels to the realm of reality present in his cinematic world. Needless to say, his parents did not send him to France. FYI, he now owns a home in Paris, so technically, he managed to make that dream a reality. Anyway, upon graduation from his private middle school, he was forced to enroll, rather unhappily, to a public high school. As a badge of defiance and a badge of honor, he continued to wear his private school blazer, just as his character Max Fisher would do in Rushmore. An avid reader during those high school years, he devoured the short stories of F. Scott Fitzgerald, particularly The Captured Shadow. Now, this particular short concerns the exploits of a romantic 15-year-old, Basil Lee, as he attempts to stage his own play at prep school. Again, an obvious inspiration for Rushmore. Well, by the time he landed at the University of Texas at Austin, West decided he wanted to be a writer. However, visits to the university library led him to stumble upon a very good collection of books about movies. Now, given that several libraries existed on the campus, he explored the movie book section in each library, which allowed him to find more hidden gems. Now, an additional bonus, for every book about a filmmaker, there was also access to their films within the libraries. So back and forth between the books and the films, soaking up all that information and all that inspiration, his fascination for the art of cinema was reignited. Now at UT Austin, he had the fortune to meet his frequent leading actor and screenwriting collaborator, Owen Wilson. The two first encountered one another as classmates in the same playwriting course. A funny thing is, they never spoke nor interacted with one another in the class itself. After the course was over, however, one random day on campus, Owen walked up to Wes in one of the English department buildings, suddenly carrying on as if they were close friends. Now, Owen asked for his advice on which professor's courses to take, as if it was just another conversation in a series of interactions between close friends. Well, obviously, the tactic worked, as they soon became friends, eventual roommates, and so on and so on. Now, interestingly, regarding the roommate situation, there was a deal made for the better room in the apartment. Wes wrote a paper for Owen on Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Cask of Amontillado. Owen received an A+, so Wes received the better room. Proof that his writing skills were something to behold.